Hey, y'all, this is Troy Black and friends. We are going to be talking about Elon Musk stepping away from Doge potentially today, and also Tesla's stock price dropping since November, December timeline, but also the company profits sort of plummeting since last year. Is he going to be able to pull Tesla out of a hole? Stick around, find out. We're also going to be talking about a few little snippets of information we found that most people might be unaware of.
All right,
Obviously,
everyone. What?
Hey, Doug, I'm just going to say this since my brain is not working today and I can't even come up with vocab words. I'm going to let you take over from here and give us the information.
All right. Well, buckle up because it is definitely one weird, wild ride into the unknown, unlike Elon's Roadster. Speaking of which, the man of the hour, Elon Musk, he's the guy who's either saving the world or burning it down, depending on your viewpoint, right? He's come out with some interesting news, and I'm sure most of you guys have heard, but the word on the street is that he plans to return to Tesla at more of a full-time position toward the end of May. Now, he has said that he's going to just significantly reduce his time at Doge, so we'll see how that works out. But in other Elon news, Tesla's stock this year has been as bipolar as a liberal Tesla owner. Who knows what it's going to do next? Oh, yeah, that's right, Nancy Pelosi. It's currently sitting at, let's see, 256, somewhere on there, moving around a little bit. It's up today, actually. And we want to know if it's going to crash, right? Or if this is actually poised to moon, also unlike Elon's Roadster. So can Elon...
These jokes are over my head.
That's okay.
Did Nancy Pelosi own a Tesla?
Fire. No, but she knows all the stock picks because
she knows all of it.
Cheats.
Oh, okay, I missed that one. Yeah. I do know she loves the insider trading. That is
her thing. You could.
That's her hobby, insider trading.
Good
hobby. Even if she's not invested, she's gonna know what's going on.
She's probably shorting it right now. I'm sure she's shorting.
Just a little side hustle, no big deal.
Yeah, actually, I think wasn't it her husband? Her husband mostly. Well, it's probably both of them, but yeah, one of them anyway. The Pelosi's know what's up.
Yeah.
So what everybody wants to know is Tesla's stock going to crash, or is Tesla just going to crash in general? Can Elon ride in on a shining Cybertruck and save the day? That's his goal anyway. What does this all mean for Doge? And is he going to play both sides of this story? Is he going to stay in Doge still? Is he going to go to Tesla? Is he going to do other things? Can he make it all happen without exposing his robot clone also helping him work it out? Or is he just going to focus on one thing and make it all happen at Tesla again? Because Tesla has been down. What was it? And let's see over here. I got some information pulled up. The last quarter, it was down like 70% or something crazy like that.
From last year. Yeah, I believe that's right. It was
the stock?
70%. No, it's the actual company. The car company's profits are down 70%.
Yeah,
from last year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this time last year. So that's
the stock is doing what stocks do.
Year. It's comparing the previous year.
Yeah.
So that seems worse than the stock going down. Like actual profits down 70%. That's horrendous.
Well, it's only down 20% this year, I think, technically from the start of the year, but it's 70% from where they were last year. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So how will Elon's return to Tesla ultimately impact Doge? That's what I want to know. Do you guys think that it's really going to have a huge impact on Doge? Is he leaving behind a team capable of handling everything without him? Or did he make it so that basically they can't do anything without him? Did he really set them up well for success?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is kind of a standard way that an executive would think, is to come in, get something started, get the right people in place, and then step back and let the thing work out the way it should, and let them do the work that they're doing. I don't think that, it's him, himself digging through all these lines and lines and lines of everything. Probably some of that. I mean, he's very in the weeds on things, but obviously this team and the data mining and the different expertise that you've seen that's needed in order to look at these big amounts of data and information. No, I think the team is fully capable. I think this is the pattern we should expect. I mean, if I'm going to start a little agency on ghostwriting. I would do the work myself. Then I would hire some writers, teach them how to do it, and then let them do it. And then I would just step back and manage the operations, make sure everything's going the way it should be going. And so that's sort of the route that I see this going. I think that this is the natural progression of it. And he's even said he's going to stay involved. He's going to stay around to make sure that things are still moving forward. And at a minimum, he's brought a lot of attention to a lot of this waste that most of us already knew was there. But I think it brought it a little more mainstream, having him involved with it.
Well, I think what you're talking about is an entrepreneurial mindset, is the letting it go, building it, letting it go.
Yeah, one of the things he actually said this week during an interview about his potentially stepping away to an extent was he said the major work in setting up Doge is done, is what he said. So whether he's, just trying to justify his stepping away or not, I mean, I believe him when he says that. And it seems like that he has actually, successfully cut a whole, or at least pointed out a whole lot of things that need to be cut. But the other side of the coin is like, if he didn't step away, eventually to an extent, then I think I would be at least starting to ask questions of like, why not? Why is he not going back to, like he's got so many companies he's running, but then at the same time, and that was another thing he said, he's like, he's hoping to set it up in such a way where all of the extreme fraud that they've cut out and the waste they've cut out doesn't just come flooding back, so he's got to take some specific measures to be able to do that. But I believe him when he says that, the main groundwork is done.
Right. And it makes me think of like what he did when he bought Twitter, which, I mean, not everybody agrees with all the changes and things that he did. I definitely am a thumbs up on the, increase to free speech and all that kind of stuff. I'm not on X, so I don't know as far as like how well the platform is working versus how it was before. But, he came in, shook things up, fired a bunch of people, and then he attempted to set up a better system and put people in place and then left. And so again, it's that entrepreneurial mindset of like, if you put the right people in place and you set it all up, then there shouldn't be any reason why you need to stay. Yeah. And I think honestly, from how well Doge is doing things, I think he probably did a better job setting up Doge than he did setting up Twitter before he left. Like Doge seems to be performing really well. Like they're doing what I think most Americans would want an agency like that to do, which is just weeding out all kinds of waste, weeding out all kinds of things. And I think that can continue obviously without him. I have some thoughts about him going back to Tesla. But I think him leaving Doge doesn't mean that Doge is going to fall apart. Like I'm pretty confident that they're going to continue, especially with the president being liking Doge so much. There's no way that he's just like, if it stops working, there's no way he's not going to revamp it to continue its job of like trying to cut waste.
And I don't think he's actually leaving. He said the quote was that starting probably next month, I think that's May, my time allocation to Doge will drop significantly. So that he's not going away. And I just, one thing I would caveat is comparing, building up Tesla from the ground up, or Twitter, taking over Twitter, which was a mess. And comparing that to starting a new organization of Doge, I mean, that's a very different skill set.
Right.
To do that. And I think what he's done, and I'm not a huge Elon Musk fan. I mean, I've got lots of nefarious things that I think is probably behind some of the motivations that we could talk about for some of these different actions he's done in public. But I will say, though, he knows what he's doing when it comes to this sort of thing. And he got more features out faster with a lot less people. And that happened at Twitter. And so he's definitely knows how to do things efficiently, and he knows how to put in the work to get it done and hire the right people to get it done, and the people with the right mentality to get it done. So I'm certain that as long as we keep the limelight, I do think he needs to stay involved with Doge, at least from a branding standpoint, and keeping it in front of people, because I think it's important. So
I don't know if you know this or not, Ryan, but I think that you probably do, because it is possible to question somebody and appreciate what they're doing and see the results of it, but then kind of still hold them at arm's length and be like, but I don't really trust you all the way. What you did here was great, but I don't know about what you're doing.
Yeah, I call it trust, but that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is like a normal thing in life. Like if people are like, who do you 100% trust? Like the Bible, like that's what I 100% trust without question. Like that's a short list, And like for me in business, I call it trust but verify. Okay, so I trust what you're saying, but go ahead and show me how you're entering those orders while I'm doing this audit, so that I can make sure that it's going to be done 100% every time. I trust you. I see the process, but now demonstrate it. And it's the same thing here. Like, we see it, and a lot of people, I know investors are saying that too about Tesla. They're saying, well, yeah, he's saying it's not a car company, but 90% of the profits are from cars, and he's a battery company as well, and he's doing all these robots and all that stuff. But a lot of that is promises. They're promises, and what they're saying is a lot of those promises, yeah, we got to see them come to fruition, but some of those are already priced in to the value of the stock. So it's not like it's going to be some new information. Like when it actually comes and they come out with it, maybe more people will jump in, but some of that at least is already priced in. And so it's just interesting to see different takes on some.
Right. You're talking about the value of the stock, which is interesting because like when you just go back and look at the graph, I think something that's happening right now is actually it's not that it's like just plummeting necessarily, because obviously it went down. And then when he announced he's going back to Tesla, it rose back up, at least I think 6% that first day. But I think it's more likely just correcting, because what we saw was a huge boom, of the stock price when he, after he joined Trump's campaign, and then the campaign looked like it was going to win. Suddenly, people started jumping in on his stock. So I think there was a lot of publicity for Elon Musk that happened in that time, but also just in general, a lot of people got behind him as a person and behind his companies. And we saw that boom happened in November, December time. And I think there's more of a correction happening now. And it's not like it's dropped back below where it was, it just corrected, so I think there is something that's happening there that's, the media is not pointing out, which is like, it hasn't lost its base value, from where it was.
If you look at a 5-year chart, you'll see it basically it's at the point closer to what it was in 2024. And so it's not like it doubled, right? Like went up. And then now it's gone back down to that level. And so a lot of that is trading. Like if you look at trading, you look at sentiment, you look at fundamentals, all those kinds of things. It's building. And now it got above a level that it hasn't been at since 2021. And it didn't get to that ceiling yet, but you see there was a sharp drop way back then. And so, it's just, some of this is just trading activity, and that's what it is. Because if you look at it right now, it's at the same level as it was for several years, right around there.
Yeah.
I wonder how many politicians will have to file bankruptcy from not receiving all that stolen money. It's never coming back to them. I love that comment from Overflow of His Glory.
Oh, that is outstanding.
Yeah. I saw a Democrat senator retired the other day. One of the
So
top
we can't make
ones.
money anymore. Let's get out of here.
And I just wonder, he's been in politics for like 30-something years, and then he's just like, I'm gonna retire now, guys. And I just wonder. I'm like, I wonder. Like, my slush fund is gone. This isn't really worth it.
Well, and I think a lot of them are getting out because exposure is coming to different things, and they're just like, the gig's up, get out now, so that when the news hits, nobody cares because they're already out of politics. Like,
might be.
They can go on to their $1 million consulting deal or whatever.
Right. I think Elon Musk is sharing some of the pressure and weight right now too, though. And obviously we're joking about Democratic senators and stuff. But some of the things recently, obviously he
Republican senators.
He can,
Dan Crenshaw.
True. He can be hot-headed.
I have something in my throat there. Sorry.
Yeah, right. And you've seen the behind the scenes of what's actually going on in politics. But yeah, he can be hot-headed and stuff, but also very passionate about his beliefs and stuff. Obviously, he's disagreed with Trump on the tariffs. That's one thing that I think is worth stating. We also saw this last week. He had what they called a WWE match in the White House with let me see if I get Secretary Scott Bessent, and they got a
I think was it
Bessent? Is that how you say it? Anyways, him and Elon Musk got into a heated shouting match within earshot of President Trump this last week about a dispute about the IRS, and this was in the White House. And obviously, they a lot of different people like commented on it, and one of them said it was two billionaire middle-aged men thinking it was a WWE in the Hall of the West Wing. One of the witnesses said, now, obviously, Scott is not a billionaire, but I think his net worth is like $500 million or something like that. But what
chump change, what is that?
Yeah, exactly. What we saw was Elon Musk, very, very stressed out. And like my personal opinion when I see stuff like that is maybe that happens more often than we see, as like normal lay people watching the news. But I think some of those pressures could just be what's happening at Tesla, and then him trying to juggle so many things at one time.
Yeah, definitely. And he's been known to just overwork himself too. I've heard a lot of negative reports from him, a little bit more directly. When I lived in Reno, I worked at the Tesla factory for a very short stint because that place was not fun to work at. But there were, I never saw him walk through, but he would do walkthroughs, and people that I worked with said things like, do not talk to him. Don't say a dang thing. Pretend like he's not there because he will bite your head off. And I'm like, well, yeah, he's like sleeps in his office. So, I mean, he's under a lot of pressure and he's just adding more crap to his plate. So not surprising.
And I think some of that is just, I mean, that's kind of his personality, is just to go all in on things and learn. And I mean, how to do, like, he couldn't find somebody to build rockets the way he wanted. So he studied and learned how to build rockets himself. It's just, whether it's the stress of it coming down, or it's just sort of an outworking of his personality and his approach to things. And whether, I mean, is this really anything different? Like, as far as what he's already, the pattern in his own life and how he approaches things and that sort of stuff. That's kind of, I would argue maybe it's not so different, but because this is kind of a conglomeration of all the patterns I think we've already seen that he's doing, and so.
Yeah. One thing you're making me think about is so PayPal, Elon Musk. Doug, am I intruding on something you're going to share later with PayPal?
No,
okay, so
you're good. Go for it.
He was one of the early CEOs of PayPal, and that was after it was actually named Confinity originally, which is like mix of confidence and infinity, and it was just a payment processing platform. And Elon Musk had actually founded X.com, which was, surprisingly enough, which was a early online banking platform. And so X.com in 1999, I believe it was, merged with Confinity and they became PayPal. And Elon Musk eventually took over as the CEO of PayPal, and he was also the major shareholder. But what happened was when they merged as two different companies, quickly the two founders of Confinity started realizing, like, this is going to be a really rough, rocky road, because our company has one like working environment and one culture, which is very fun and laid back, and they were very much just like idea driven and stuff. And Elon Musk's company X.com was very efficient and just like, we are working hard and we're going nonstop.
Robotic.
And when the very robotic, and when the two companies tried to merge, there was a lot of clashes that happened, and eventually that was part of the reason why he eventually, while on vacation, got fired from being the CEO of PayPal. And so I honestly think there could be a little bit of it's so weird seeing but that's just how he works. Like, he's efficiency to the max. That's how he brought Tesla, back from the grave, essentially, when it was going bankrupt originally, when he took over there. So there's a lot of things about Elon Musk that I think are very awesome, like he's very good at what he does. I mean, I've heard him literally this week. I was listening to somebody talk about him, and they were, about him leaving Doge and stuff, and they referred to him as the Albert Einstein of our time. So he's obviously very, very smart in some ways, but I think there's a little bit of a potential vendetta there, because, I mean, if you just look at like his history, and some of the decisions he's made, I mean, X.com, like being swallowed up and by the birthing of PayPal. And one of the things he wanted later was, while they were like hemorrhaging money as a company, he wanted to rebrand it back to X.com, which was a bad idea at the time. And when they polled people said, we don't want to bank with a company that has X in it because of the, it sounds like a bad website, basically,
right. Yeah.
They're like, we don't want to
soon for that.
Exactly. People are like, we don't want to put our money in a website that, it's like, anyways. So or we don't want to use that, to buy stuff, because it's going to show up on the car, on the transaction receipt and everything.
That's
right.
funny.
So, it's just a generally like bad dissent about that term and using it as a payment processor. But he wanted to rebrand to X.com, and it was rejected by the other founders of Confinity. But then now, 20 years later, we see that he buys Twitter and renames it X.com,
Which, man, I really wish you didn't do, because it's so annoying to say that. Like, what do you say? Like, I can't say what I tweeted anymore.
Re-X somebody.
I still say I'm tweeting. I just tweeted it. I still say it. But but it's just weird to see that, it's kind of the idea of like 20-year kind of vendetta, maybe, but potentially, and like some of his personal issues rising to the surface. That's the one thing that I'm like kind of questioning as he's going back to Tesla, and I'm looking and I'm wondering, like, can he pull Tesla out of, its current slump? And it's like, well, is he going to be able to get over some of his personal things that he has to deal with, I think, in making decisions? Because obviously he's a very, very smart, intelligent person, but he also obviously deals with some personal issues, that do crop up from time to time.
here's one of the big things about that, though, when he does go back to Tesla, and this is a big question because this is speculative. We're not going to know how this plays out. But is he going to be able to kind of pull back in the liberal leaning customers? You know, like, is California going to start playing nice with Tesla again because he's pulling out of politics? You know, like I always talk about, we as a country have that short-term memory. You know, who knows, by this summer, maybe everybody forgets that, oh yeah, Elon Musk was doing the Doge thing and was all conservative. And then now he's just back to cars, and people in that world like his cars, regardless of his politics. So maybe he can kind of pull that base back a little bit and revamp and rebrand in that sense to get it out of the red and back up into the black.
If I can chime in on that, this is what I've wanted to bring up, because I'm not concerned about him leaving Doge. I'm thinking about him, which I don't have a vested interest in Tesla. Like, I don't like to see anything fail. I think Tesla's a good company. I'd like for them to succeed. I don't personally ever want to buy an electric car, and I don't know if I'll ever have any interest in the other things that Tesla is making. But I say that maybe someday I will, because I won't have a choice.
Right. That's my question. That's always my
because
question.
Tesla's or Elon Musk is trying to make the Jetsons future, or like robots do everything for us and stuff like that. So maybe I won't have a choice someday. But I think it's going to be extremely difficult. Elon Musk, he has the positive. Troy kind of hinted at this as well. There's positive and negatives with his really intense personality. He's always been an extremely front-facing CEO, and there's good to that and bad to that. The good to that is having a front-facing CEO. It makes people associate the CEO with the company. And if the CEO does cool things and has like a good vibe or whatever, people are like, oh, well, I like the CEO, and it makes for a better brand. And you cannot disassociate the Tesla brand from Elon Musk. It's really hard to. Some people have, like in the past, people, whatever their political leanings, and before Elon Musk was super political, and he was just kind of on Twitter being an edgelord, as they say, and sharing lots of memes, and then having political hot takes all the time. But you never knew. It's like, is he left? Is he right? He didn't want to have any labels. He kind of just, said what he wanted to say. There's a lot of people that are just like, Elon Musk, he's whatever. But like, I really like Tesla. I really like the cars, Nowadays, that is much, much harder to do, because you have liberals or super crazy progressive activists, whether they're paid to do this or not, I don't know. You have people that are burning Teslas right now. Elephant in the room. You have people burning down Teslas. The other day, my wife and I were driving around. We drove up to a Tesla that was at a stoplight, had a bumper sticker on the back that said, "I bought this before we knew Elon Musk was crazy."
Oh my God.
On the back of the Tesla. And it was just, and I wondered, I'm like, either one, that is a liberal who is like, I don't agree with Elon Musk's politics. They don't like him anymore because of his politics. And now they're like, oh shoot, I have this Tesla. Or it could actually secretly be a conservative who owns a Tesla, who's like, maybe if I put this on the back of my car, no one will catch my car on fire. No one's going to vandalize my car. And
that's funny.
Imagine at this point, if we're all conservative here, probably not big supporters of, say, like Joe Biden or like Nancy Pelosi. Imagine if Nancy Pelosi came out with a line of cars or like a line of clothes or hats or something. Which one of us is going to be, and she's really closely associated to the brand, are one of us going to be like, well, those are some really nice looking cars, I'm going to go buy one? Like, you're not going to be able to get it out of your head. Wait a second. My money is in a roundabout way going to somebody with politics I really disagree with. And so with that said, half the country still is extremely liberal, population wise. Not, I know, when you break out the counties and stuff, but when you get into the really heavy, dense population areas of the country on the west and the east, I think it's just going to be really, really hard for him if he's going to be like still front facing and saying whatever he wants to say.
That'll be
it's going to be really hard for anyone who's not comfortable with what his politics and what he's done. It's going to be really hard for them to disassociate and be like, I can see Tesla as a brand and as a car, as a robot company, as a battery company, all the things he wants to do. I'm okay buying this without thinking about the CEO. That's my thoughts about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think he might just actually, he's either going to have to be a little bit more quiet on that front, or pivot entirely on his rhetoric and just kind of like, and rely on that short-term memory and hope that people just kind of like forget, I guess. I don't know, but maybe he's got something up his sleeve that's going to be completely different.
I was talking to a friend. I was talking to a friend of mine in the music industry this week, and he was talking about how he came out and supported Trump last year publicly on his platform, and he's paying the price for it now, and he's literally thinking about a career shift because of it, and it's just crazy to think about that it's like, if, the problem was his base audience wasn't necessarily specifically Trump supporters. And so even though they like him, they're not necessarily going to go listen to his music. You know what I mean? Like consistently. Right. And he lost some of his base audience because they were anti-Trump, some of them. So it's like, whether they were liberal or conservative, obviously there's no Trumpers on both sides, but just the idea of being associated with something so politically controversial like Trump, can be like a freaking tattoo on your face where you're going in for a job interview and they're like, I noticed you have a tattoo across your face. You're not going to be able to pass off not having it. You know what I mean?
And I think to me, it's the right thing to do. I mean, if he feels led to come out and talk about that thing and risk that, then so be it. I mean, I think if we're going to just quiet ourselves because we think of what's going to come, then fine, just compromise everything all over the place. And then you get twisted up and you're not even yourself anymore. Like that's the outworking of that. It's not some little thing. And so the left has no idea, no problem coming out and telling you who they support and don't listen to their music and all this stuff, and the right, I guess we don't do that. But the thing is, because that's the kind of person that you typically see. And I think a lot of those people are kind of being puppeteered as well. And people who kind of think for themselves, they're going to be canceled by the establishment industry. And then that's what's going to be platformed.
Uh-oh. We lost you, Ryan.
If I can hop in on what Ryan was saying, I totally agree with what Ryan is saying. I was
the industry.
Oh no, keep going, Ryan. I don't want to. I was just hopping in because you paused for a second. I'm agreeing with what you're saying though.
I'm not sure where it got paused, but I'm just saying that when the right comes out, the left runs shot against the right and media and the mainstream and all that. And when the left comes out, they run cover. And so you see that as well. And I think it says a lot about somebody's character. I mean, I'd rather just have a brand where I'm myself and I can talk about what I want to talk about and say what I want to say.
Right.
And, let,
which is kind of what Elon has done.
Come what may, and that's, and that's kind of where he's at. I mean, that's where he's been standing, and that's what it is. And so, but that way you're a little more free. Otherwise you're this people pleasing, always making your decisions based on the expectations of others and what's the outcome going to be and this and that versus what's God, what's the Holy Spirit, what am I being led to do? That really should be. And I don't know if all these
whatever
people
spirit is involved.
know Christ, but
yeah.
Well,
I definitely don't think Elon Musk
topic.
is a Christian. I don't particularly see it.
Yeah, let's be clear. I'm not saying that Elon Musk is doing this on behalf of the Holy Spirit.
You're speaking for yourself.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, we've all seen the interview on Babylon B, Ryan, so we know.
As a person, you need to decide: are you going to be authentic and genuine, or are you going to just make all your decisions based on the expectations of others and the potential outcomes and this and that? So
to quote Elon Musk himself, and I completely agree with you, Ryan, and I would hope that everyone can be that way in life. I was just coming at it from the practical standpoint, and he gets a lot of pressure and a lot of flack for this from shareholders and stuff like that, and be like, wait a second, you're running this company. And we've invested in this company and we want a great return on this company. Shareholders, obviously, they would rather be able to sell to everybody. And obviously, Elon Musk, he's long done this. He's long said things and done things that have kind of alienated some people. But I would rather live in a world where everyone really does just get to say and do who they are and be what they are and be who they are. And Elon Musk, this is a little quote from an interview that he did. I thought this was so funny. This was back in 2023. He tweeted a tweet that I think is hysterical. I mean, it's a little insulting, but it's funny. He talking about George Soros, and in his tweet he said, "Soros reminds me of Magneto," and Magneto being the supervillain from the X-Men. So he just tweets that. That's just like
there's another X quote.
What?
There's another X reference.
Another X reference. That's true. Maybe he really likes the X-Men. Maybe that's why he wanted everything named X.
Or maybe there's something bigger that they're both going after.
Anyway, so he tweets that out. So later in an interview, a journalist is asking him why he says politically polarizing things, even though there's a chance that it hurts his business. And then they talked about free speech for a little bit. And then the interview guy was like, no, I'm not talking about free speech. He's like, I know you have free speech, but he's like, but you run a business. He's like, why do you say polarizing things when it might alienate people who would buy from you? And his response at first was to quote Princess Bride, where he's like, offer me money, offer me power or whatever. And like, that's not what he wants. He did quote Princess Bride for a little bit, and he says like, I don't care. And then he follows it up with specific quote, I'll say what I want to say. And if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it. And that's obviously always been his attitude. Like he's a very authentic person. I definitely wouldn't want to work for him. I've also heard the horror stories as well. Doug, I didn't know that you worked at a plant there of his for a little bit, but I've heard the horror stories. He's not a CEO that I would want to work for, but he also he knows how to get stuff done. He definitely does. And I appreciate some of the things that he does. But that's his attitude. He wants to say what he wants to say, and he's okay with the consequence of losing money. I think that you just need, maybe if you're going to be investing in his company, it better be because you really believe it and you're willing to also take the consequence when things go down. But obviously his hope is that they can do enough cool stuff that it makes up for basically any political alienation.
And I think investors are right to, be cautious and aware of, well, it's kind of a wild card. He might say something and the stock might plummet. But the thing is, that's not a surprise. Like if you're investing in Tesla stock, you have that's the potential. And you're probably, I think there's a lot more factors. If people want to oversimplify it, and of course they want to get the headlines and all this and that, but there's all this technical analysis. There's all kinds of actual analysis that happens when you look at investing in a company. And of course, Elon is one more factor that comes in, but that obviously is a vote in the camp of people who say, well, Tesla is too much based on Elon's brand versus actually its own brand. And so, I mean, it's interesting to see that. I mean, another thought I had on politics is, I've worked with a lot of companies and politics comes up. And if I agree, like somebody will just make a comment about Trump for or against, and depending on what they make, I may engage in the conversation, or I may just make a, summarizing comment that, I'm not sure that's the way I see it. And then we go back to the audit or whatever we're doing. Or if it, ends up being a 20-minute conversation or something, it's just interesting, especially in other countries. I mean, it's interesting to see how people are seeing this, but you can have these kinds of conversations with people who you agree with or don't agree with and can maintain a cordial atmosphere. But we don't see a lot of that today.
So was it worth it is the big question. Was this whole thing with Doge going this route and getting extremely political? Because now, after Doge, it wasn't just comments on X. It was really full bore, literally trying his best to give little speeches for Trump and polarizing his following even more. Was it worth it for all of his other adventures? And what do you guys think of that?
I think it was worth it for us. I don't know if it was worth it for him. I'll say that. And I would honestly, if this ends up being like a personal sacrifice for Elon Musk, I would say thank you to Elon Musk, and God, thank you for using him in the way that you've used him to gut our government of corruption and waste, and praying that continues, gutting the government of corruption and waste and creating something better. In the short term, I feel like it's a sacrifice, a personal sacrifice. In the long term, I don't know. I could comment about some of the things he wants to do with Tesla in the future. I don't want to talk too much. I'll let you guys take your pick, but I don't know. I don't know if this is, I am a little hesitant to say that this was not a long-term sacrifice for Elon Musk, that he could have stayed focusing on businesses and done whatever he wanted to do in business and made more money. And this may have literally been a sacrifice to be able to get politically involved, which oftentimes getting politically involved is a sacrifice. You could say that. Right. I don't know. Is it a sacrifice for Donald Trump to get into politics? He almost had his head taken away from him. So it's good for us. It's not necessarily there's a price to be paid for doing the right thing sometimes, and I'm glad that he's paid that price, in my opinion.
I have I think it was actually a personal benefit for him and for us. I think it was all around. I don't think there was any negative aspect for him, because I think, first of all, it kept him in the limelight. It kept him out here. I think he has other aspirations to be tying together brain chips and payments and X, Twitter, all of this. I mean, this is a plan that he's moving forward, and he's staying in the limelight. He's staying in there. It's like Trump. It's like, publicity, bad, good. It's all publicity. It's all people. You're on the minds of people. So that would be my take. I need to give a personal example of somebody. So he comes out, takes a political stance, and gets a hit. When I ran for office in 2020, there was a woman who gave to my campaign, didn't do anything publicly, but she had a big company in the area. And she called me and she said, hey, who did you tell that I donated to your campaign? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, I'm getting blown up. All these people are saying they're not going to do business with me. They're going to this and that. And I'm like, I didn't talk about it to anybody. Well, anybody who donates to a campaign it's public information. So anybody can go get it. Well, a reporter called her from the Des Moines Register in Iowa and said, hey, by the way, I've got this going on. I need to get a statement on this and that. And it's like, she's like, I give to all kinds of people, but they just blew her up and they were going to not do business and all this kind of, and it wasn't even a public thing, but it's just like, that's the kind of crazy games that people play. And I have other business owners that they're like, well, I love to donate to your campaign. I love what you're doing. I love it, but I just can't because, I got all these college students working for me and they're all not going to, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like just anyway, so what I'm saying is if you grow your lifestyle of doing that and being quiet at some point, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the Bible, you're going to have to make a decision. Are you going to bow the knee or not and deal with the consequences?
So Ryan,
what kind of life do you want to live?
I agree with you slightly, but I'm going to disagree with your initial point where you said you don't think it was a sacrifice. I think it's pretty obvious, at least from my perspective, that it was at least a temporary sacrifice because of the huge hit that Tesla.
I agree. I do agree with that. I meant big picture, not a sacrifice.
You mean big picture. So
yeah,
I
agree
with him going back to Tesla. I honestly have been wondering if he's able to pull it off or not after doing a little research about just Elon Musk in general this week and his history and his background. I would say now I'm fairly confident that he's going to be able to do it. Whether that means going silent with political stuff or whatever, he's probably not going to be silent because he's going to keep saying what he wants to say. I would push the future of his companies probably towards the next thing that he does because he's done so many revolutionary things. I'll just give a little bit of information real quick. One of the things I found was when he joined Tesla in 2008, they were literally getting crushed and they're on the brink of bankruptcy. And they had just burned through CEO after CEO, making bad decisions and making things worse when he became the CEO. And immediately when he got on board, he cut 25% of the staff immediately. Same thing he did with Twitter, cut 25% of the staff, recalled 75% of their main vehicle at the time, which was the Roadster, right? And then raised $40 million in private lending. And then literally borrowed like $245 million from the government. He immediately got the funding that he needed. And then we see up to 2013 when he started the Gigafactory. So he essentially changed the direction of the company from just being cars. And obviously we still see 90% of the profits are from the cars, but he changed the direction of Tesla. And I think what that did was it planted a seed in the minds of investors, that, hey, this is more than just a car company. And I honestly believe what he's going to have to do next to pull Tesla back up from what, the pit it fell into is going to be pivoting again and saying, hey, we're expanding again. Because one of the things that happened was, we lost Ryan there. One of the things that happened was, in the 90s, I don't remember the name of it, but a huge electric vehicle was released and they thought it was going to do really well and it was going to be the next big thing, and it eventually failed and bombed. And that actually was the launching point for Tesla. That's where Tesla came in and said, okay, we actually think this can work if you do it right. But one of the things that Elon Musk did to essentially save Tesla in the early 2010s was the start of the Gigafactory and saying, hey, the most expensive thing here, the hardest thing to do is the batteries, is the battery life. It's because people don't want to buy these cars because they're afraid. I don't remember what it's called, but it's called like range anxiety is what we call it. So he lowered the range anxiety when he did that, and by increasing the battery life. And he did that by making his own batteries and making them as efficient as possible, and changing the way they were made. So he was like, we're not going to buy batteries anymore. We're going to make our own batteries, So he and this is what he does across the board. He's just like, okay, if there's no way to do it, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to make a way to do it, And then what that did was it lowered the range anxiety, and suddenly people wanted to buy Teslas, because now electric vehicle was an actual, workable solution to transportation. Whereas before that, it really wasn't. It was more of like I've got a bunch of money in the bank and I want to buy an electric vehicle so I can have it sitting in my garage, Right. And so he revolutionized the electric vehicle industry. And I really feel like he can do the same thing again with Tesla, but I think it's going to take some sort of pivot in order to do that. Let me see if now Ryan's still out. So that would be my take on it. It's like after doing the research about Elon himself, I definitely changed my perspective on whether or not he's going to be able to save Tesla.
Yeah. Well, and my original question of like, was it worth it, was a little bit of a setup because man, I wish Ryan was here. Dang it, Ryan, where'd you go?
He'll come back.
Well, we'll have to bring him into the loop on this. But the interesting little twist on this is that what if this was all, maybe not all, but what if a big part of this was an elaborate plot to take over the governmental arm of space exploration? Because he has been after NASA for years. He has been a part of all of that and he has been influencing it. But now maybe this was actually, opportunity arose. He went in with Doge and now he's got a lot more government contacts and connections. And he has had a lot more involvement with NASA. And you'll probably not find this very surprising, but NASA was one of the government arms that experienced one of the harshest
cuts.
Cuts from the Doge program. And
he's like, you're not needed because I've got a company over here that's better.
Right. Well, not just better, but actually kind of like taking over from the inside out is what it appears on the surface. And so
interesting.
What if he's doing the ultimate magic distraction trick with Doge, Tesla taking over NASA? And now, so one of the things that people have been reporting from NASA is that he has been very intentionally taking all of the effort and the energy and the focus. I mean, he's affecting it. He's not like personally in there,
right?
But taking the focus from the supposed moon mission that they've been working on for the last who knows how long, and directing that over to this new Mars mission that he's been really wanting to do, which he's been pretty vocal about, wanting to go to Mars. But what he hasn't been vocal about is how much he is absolutely just pressuring NASA and all the people there to go that way instead of what they've been trying to do. And it seems like SpaceX might just kind of be infiltrating in the middle of NASA to take it over. So what do you guys think of that? Is that a good reason for him?
Man, I think that's a very interesting point and idea, because I could definitely see that being the case. I mean, there's no way with a brain like Elon Musk that he has, there's no way he didn't have that thought when he went into Doge.
Right. Like, you know what? I never thought of this before. I guess this is similar to what I want to do.
Exactly. I mean, I even think about like Ukraine, back in, I think it was 2022 or 2023, where they couldn't communicate. They didn't have the communication. The communications has been cut across the country, basically, in a significant way. And Elon Musk said, well, we're going to bring communication back by offering free Starlink to all of
right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
All of the Ukrainian government, or whatever, and however they need to use it. And so he brought that infrastructure back overnight for free, to them. And so I think there, even that could have been, in my mind, a publicity stunt, because all of the eyes of the world were on Ukraine, Russia at the moment, and Elon Musk essentially steps in to save the day, and it's like, it could be doing the same thing now with, with NASA. It's like, okay, I've been given a huge bit of leverage here. Maybe he's using it for personal gain in that sense and trying to get his foot in the door, with the government and space exploration. Ryan, let me bring you back in on this other one if I can. Nope. Okay, well, Ryan's invisible for the moment, so.
Got a spotty internet down there in Brazil. Speaking of Starlink, I wonder if he's using Starlink or not.
Yeah, Ryan, we need to get this show sponsored by Starlink so we can get some better internet for you down there in Brazil. Maybe Elon will give it to us for free. We'll see.
Did you have any other thoughts about that, Troy?
No, Reese, go ahead. I love the idea, because I'm like, I feel like that's something he's definitely thought of. And if there's hefty cuts happening, or at least Doge is putting hefty cuts towards NASA. Now, whether that is ethically okay or not, I would say probably leaning towards not.
Right.
But as a him being a businessman, I'm sure he thought about it. So go ahead, Reese. What do you think?
I was going to say, from past experience or past history and stuff that Elon Musk has done, he definitely knows that it is a good thing to embed yourself into the government establishment to take advantage of as many credits and that sort of influence as possible. This is something that I don't think Elon Musk has been very vocal about, because people can be really critical about this kind of thing, and there's a lot of opinions. good or bad. I think a lot of times it is bad because it's what is termed as like crony capitalism. Essentially, it's like an unholy marriage between big business and the government, where it's like you scratch
I like
my back,
that. That's really good. The unholy marriage between the two. That's
you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back.
Yeah.
That sort of thing that's occurring. So he's been kind of quiet about it, but for the longest time, and I've seen people criticize Elon Musk about this because especially since he's come out and be like, oh, there's lots of government waste, we're going to cut all this government waste. People have been like, wait, hold on, Elon Musk, your companies, especially his Tesla companies, because it's they're green vehicles, electric vehicles, which you could argue if they're really good for the environment or not. But your company has taken massive advantage of government tax cuts and green credits and all that kind of stuff, both for the company and also for individuals to be able to afford the cars. And that just goes into the business plan. Like if the government is going to provide that stuff, obviously he's going to take advantage of it. I'm not blaming him for that. However, where it gets kind of sticky is then when the business leaders are like pushing the government to do certain things. So yeah, he definitely knows about all that stuff. Not only has he been using his proximity now to Trump and the government to be able to push his mission to Mars. And then, of course, I think it's great that he rescued those astronauts. Somebody needed to do it. Somebody needed to rescue those 3 astronauts. He obviously is trying to ingratiate SpaceX into being the new NASA. And honestly, I'm not saying that's necessarily bad. It'll probably be a better NASA. NASA hasn't really been doing anything for years anyways. So if we want to get to Mars someday, and that's actually like a priority.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, SpaceX is the one to do it. But it's not just space exploration. He's not just space exploration and also electric vehicles. Even recently, I was seeing quotes, the new direction he wants to take Tesla. It's not cars. Cars isn't the future because cars has a very thin profit margin. He wants to take Tesla towards AI and robots. That's what he wants to do. What did he do when he ingratiated himself with Donald Trump? He started affecting AI. I don't know if you guys know about this, but he's had a huge, years-long public feud with OpenAI. And OpenAI is who makes ChatGPT. And OpenAI, he used to be on the board for OpenAI. He was an early investor. Now he is suing them. He criticizes them all the time, and he's tried to buy them out, which they refuse to because he doesn't like what they're doing because they have a certain vision for the future and how AI is going to be. And they whip up a lot of scare. OpenAI literally, like, part of their job as a company is to scare people and being like, AI is super dangerous, guys, because they want the government to regulate the AI industry so they can be at the top. They want regulatory capture. They want everybody else not to be able to make AI and OpenAI to be the only government approved safe AI. They want to be the government AI. Elon Musk, honestly, I don't know exactly what his vision is. He might want something similar. Obviously, he would want his AI to be the only approved government AI. He seems to be more, a little more on like the open source side. He seems to be like not quite as
decentralized.
He seems to be a little more decent, a little less, corrupt sounding than OpenAI does, in my personal opinion. But he has a vision, and he wants the government to enact his vision. So he absolutely is, and I think will continue using the government as much as he can to help enact his vision for the future, going to Mars, having robots. Like, he wants the government to support that stuff, and he wants obviously to get government contracts to do that kind of stuff. Like, I think that he's definitely knows what he's doing in that regard.
Yeah, he's playing all his cards. Yeah, I will push back though, Reese. You said that something about like Elon Musk being the one who's like, well, no one else is going to save these astronauts, so I'm going to save them. I think Katy Perry could have just saved them while she was up there. So she
I mean, she probably could have. I think she could have saved them just as easily as Elon did, personally, because I don't really think that anything was going on up there. But that's a different story.
Don't make fun of Katy Perry. She's the first female astronaut.
Views, Doug. We'll have to do another episode and dive into that.
Yeah, that's a whole different story.
I don't know, man. With some of the videos, I'm like, I think they got me convinced the whole Katy Perry thing didn't really happen. So, anyway,
yeah, that was good. That was fun.
That was pretty funny, but whatever happened there. Anyways, let's get back to Elon Musk. No, I think I think you got a great point, Reese, and I think you're right. I think he's playing all his cards. He's always got an ace up his sleeve, and he's thinking about all these things ahead of time. And I think you're right. He could definitely be using his government influence now to push towards his companies being the dominating companies, not just in space exploration, but also in AI and things like that. Maybe robotics might not fall into that category because I haven't seen anything to do with government and robotics, regulations or whatever. I'm sure there's something going on there, but probably not as much as
still
AI.
a little ways off from that,
but it intersects with AI because
it intersects. But AI itself,
what runs the robots? Someday robots will be running off of those AI models that were
right, and AI itself is already a direct, danger to society. Essentially, it's already a homeland security caution. It's one of those big things that they're watching and they're waiting for something to happen. So I mean, we shared this in one of the test episodes we did back in December. If y'all have not seen the test episodes, they're pretty great, but they're on Locals. So this will be a great time to let y'all know this episode is actually sponsored by, not a real sponsor, but Filibusted exclusive. So if y'all want to get the exclusive content, we are posting that on locals.com, and there's a link below. But also you can become a YouTube member and get exclusive conversations and episodes on YouTube as well. It's a little more pricey on YouTube, but obviously a little more convenient. So there's that if you're watching and you want more content like this. So anyways, back to one of the things that I found when we were researching for that AI, episode that we did back in December was now I've lost my train of thought.
Oh, you're talking about being a threat?
Yeah, it being a threat was AI. I read a story about how AI, people essentially asked AI to do something. They were running tests on a new AI development, and they asked it to do something, and it couldn't figure out how to get past a website where it had to go onto a website and do something that only a human could do in order to essentially buy something or move funds or something like that. So what it did was it went onto Fiverr.com, created a profile as an AI, but it created a profile that looked real, literally found a way to generate money, took that money to pay a human on Fiverr to go perform this task online for it. So it found a way around. Yeah, AI was that smart. And as soon as they saw it, they were monitoring it the whole time. As soon as they saw it pay a real human somewhere in the world like $5 to go push a button on a website to do what it needed to do, they shut it down immediately, because they were like scared out of their minds, but the government knows AI is capable of doing these things, so as soon as you have the government infrastructure, like the government funded infrastructure, like things like stoplights, things like subways, things like, even more advanced things like military equipment attached to AI, you've got a huge problem, on your hands. So it's already a threat to the national security. It's already a threat, and potentially going to be even a more major threat. So I definitely could see government regulations just go astronomically, rising through the roof when it comes to AI development. And Elon Musk has probably thought through that as well. He probably knows, he's seen the back end. Obviously, if he's developing AI and all that kind of stuff, he knows what it's capable of.
So I'm also Trump's pulling billions of dollars into the AI infrastructure to the country too, which is another episode where we talked about. Is that on exclusive? I don't remember.
It is. It's
on the exclusive. Yeah, if y'all want to see that episode as well. But yeah, just the point being, he knows what's coming for AI. He knows the regulations that are coming. So if he can get his foot in the door and get into the right spot, not only can he technically get the money, the government funding, but he can also, get to where he's the one who actually has the rights to do the development versus others. So
that's what. Have you guys seen the newest Mission Impossible film? I was just gonna say everything you were describing. That was a fun film. The newest Mission Impossible film, the antagonist is a rogue AI, and it does all the things that you were just talking about. And man, they do it so well in that movie. And there's even like a guy that like worships the AI like a god. Essentially, he's like the second antagonist. He's the human arm who's just doing whatever the AI says. And it's my gosh, it's such a great movie. It honestly is a fantastic movie. Anyway. So hopefully that's not the future that we have with AI, but it definitely paints the worst case scenario in a really creative and enjoyable to watch way.
Yeah. Well, I think that what you said about the government funding that's a good point, because this really does come down to money, and you always follow the money. And with things like the AI, the billions of dollars pouring into the country, Elon is a smart business person. He sees all of this money a whole lot more clearly than any of us do. He knows where it's coming from, and he is getting his hands dipped into pretty much every bucket that he can, is what it looks like, including the space exploration bucket there over there too, because there is a ton of money in that area, and he gets to kind of have a couple big playgrounds with what seems like limitless funding. So who wouldn't want to do that, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right, Doug. I think there is a point where somebody gets to a certain point of extreme wealth, like Elon Musk has, and it's really probably not about making more money for his own personal bank account anymore. It's about, but he doesn't want to use everything he has to fund his next project. So it's about finding the funding somewhere else
to maintain that status,
to be able to do the next big thing that he wants to do with his life, And I mean, we see that. I was watching an interview from him recently on Fox News, a very recent interview where he literally he reposted this interview on his X account yesterday, or no, sorry, 2 days ago on Tuesday, and he talked about the low birth rate in the world, and literally said humanity is dying, and this is something that he's like saying this is behind a lot of the things I'm doing, right? He talked about strengthening the columns of society. And one of those columns specifically that he believes is America itself. So he said, one of the reasons I'm doing Doge and I'm doing all of this is because I'm trying to strengthen this column called America, which is one of the columns of society right now. And he said, if America goes down, he believes it's essentially going to be removing a column, that's going to drastically impact the future of humanity. And he put a heavy weight on that, and he said essentially it's a heavy weight that's weighing on him. So obviously we see that with, him saying, hey, let's go to Mars. Obviously he, electric vehicles, like he has this weight on his shoulders of let's try to do the next thing, whether it's the right thing or not for humanity, whether humanity needs it or not, at least at least that's what he's putting forth is like, this is the thing that is going to help save humanity, and I don't agree with all those thoughts and those ideas and opinions, but at the same time, it's what he's doing, and so obviously he has this motivating factor of the big picture, do the next right thing, save humanity. And I think that can be some of what he's doing, is like trying to get the funding to do something that maybe someone else hasn't done. And because he's thinking, I'm thinking about these things and other people just aren't even thinking about them, and obviously we see that. Have y'all seen the $5,000? I don't know if it's proposed or if it's passed or not, but I think it might just be proposed at this point. $5,000 new mother like tax credit, or even
I think it's just proposed, and Trump just said that sounds like a good idea, but nothing's happened. But yeah, right. I have seen it.
It's interesting. I'm like, wow. So they're literally trying to increase the birth rate by paying new mothers $5,000 for having their first child.
I think that, and I got dropped off here, but I was following the conversation here, so getting my internet figured out. But I think that our government has incentivized single-parent households, which the family is the structure and the backbone of society. And so if we could do something like this, where you're actually, and Josh Hawley, representative from Missouri, or senator from Missouri, has talked about this. If you need to incentivize strong families, and so I would say give $5,000 to two-parent households, mom and dad, that are having kids, and if they want to have 10 kids, then incentivize that. That is the backbone of society. That is what we should be doing. It shouldn't just be anybody. It should. And you can get in discrimination and all that, but I go ahead and show you the numbers on society and all that sort of things, the things the government should be incentivizing. And they should be incentivizing things that are for the good of society. And certainly this is something that is the case. So there's my soapbox on that.
And there's a lot of channels that do a lot of research on that. Like Charlie Kirk is one where he just presents the stats and he shows like, hey, statistically, if you just look at it from a math perspective, a statistics perspective, the best chance that a child has, for a good future is being raised in a family where they have a mom and a dad who are present and, and that love them, so it's like,
that's been scientifically proven.
Yeah. And
this is actually a critique I have against Elon Musk, because he takes the pro-natalist stance. What we're talking about here is being a pro-natalist, and which means like promoting more births, but not just births, but actually like families and child rearing. And that's the best way to do it, obviously. One quick note on that is that I think even better than giving mothers $5,000 per child, I saw somebody float the idea of, once you have a certain amount of kids, if you are actively raising a certain amount of children in a two-parent household, then you should just not have to pay income tax anymore. I think that would actually be even better than just like, here's some cash each time you have a child, because that even promotes like long-term, like raising children, not breaking up. Like as long as you're meeting those requirements, then you don't have to pay income tax. Like that actually further supports the families. But Elon Musk, he's taking that like pre-natalist stance, but he also is acting like Genghis Khan and trying to have as many kids with as many random women as possible.
Yeah.
And so that's a large critique of him. I know we're getting short on time, but as one of these episodes, we could talk about if we want to talk about societal collapse, that kind of, to be crass, that kind of sexual behavior actually is currently leading to a pretty major societal danger right now. We could talk about the mass amounts of men who cannot find a girlfriend, cannot find a wife. The stats are horrendous. And that is actually directly caused by the sexual revolution and feminism from the last few decades. Both men and women to blame. Like the more sexually loose your society is, it actually creates an imbalance where what you end up having is you have guys like Elon Musk who can have relations with as many women as they want, but then average men cannot find a wife. And I could get into the details for why that is and why it plays out that way and why it ends up hurting both men and women across the board. But I love his pro-natalist stance. I do not like his behavior because it actually hurts the pro-natalist movement.
I think that gets back to one of the points that we were talking about earlier, which is the idea of he's super intelligent in some ways, and he thinks through everything logically, and he's got all this intelligence, but then he's got his personal issues that sometimes get in the way, and so it's like his behavior doesn't always reflect this idealistic version that he presents through his speech, and through some of the ideologies that he talks about, especially like if you look at, well, let's keep America going. Let's, this one of these columns of society, right, and humanity. But at the same time, it's like, well, if you look at the stats, the best chance for a good future that a child has, or like their chance for a good future is greatly decreased when there's not a father in the home, and so then now he's going around and creating little families without a father in the home, so it's like himself, because his kids are, many different women. So it's just this idea of like, it is a little bit of a hypocritical thing, and obviously he needs Jesus, like that's the answer.
Yeah.
The problem,
I know I make fun of him for being a robot all the time, but at the end of the day, he is a human. So he's going to have human.
Well, I think what we're seeing here is an issue with a worldview, because if you have a worldview, then you can have all the biblical Christianity, the biblical worldview is the only one that when you look at it under a microscope, it gets stronger. Like when you actually examine it under, like looking at all the details, all the outworkings of all the things, it gets stronger and it supports itself. Every other worldview is contradicting. It contradicts itself, exactly like we're seeing here. And so we need to be building on a strong foundation. And so that's where, if you have a house and it's falling apart, are you going to add a second floor to that house? No, you got to go fix the first floor before.
Oh, that's what I did wrong. Oh my God.
Yeah. So you need to fix the foundation. And so we're trying to kind of bolt on things. And so we see good things that he's doing, but if you're bolting him on a first story that's already falling apart, then it's going to crumble as well. And then we can blame that solution and say it's a problem. Well, no, it's the foundation. You bolted it onto garbage. And so that's where we need to really go back to the foundation. And that's where I'm saying, hey, we should incentivize family growth, 2-parent households. And it doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, you can look at the research, and like you said, Charlie Kirk and these other channels have done all that, but a non-perfect 2 parents, mom and dad household is better in overall. There's exceptions, but overall is the way to go. And it's better than a non-perfect household is better than a single parent household. Now, that's not to dig on anybody. The single parent households are doing great, especially if you can get a mentor in the kid's life and that sort of thing. And so I'm not digging on anybody there, but it's just, hey, when we're going to incentivize things as a government, then we should be doing the right things that are going to have the biggest benefit over time.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think obviously single moms a lot of times end up being heroes, in their children's life.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's not to dig on them at all, but at the same time, when you look at the stats, it's like there is something that works, that tends to work better. So Doug, go ahead and let us know. Do you have anything else before we end up closing? So
that was really that was a lot more conversation than I thought that we were going to have about it. You guys all made some great points, and I really, really enjoyed that. I think that ultimately we could probably all agree with the idea that Elon is doing some really awesome things, and then perhaps on the side he's doing some things we might not really agree with. And I think that anybody, when they really look at him and what he's doing, could say that if they were being honest. And I think that, like we have said a few times, and some of the people in the comments have said, like, these people, Elon and people like him, they just need Jesus, and we just keep praying for him, and God's got this country, and whatever happens is not going to be a surprise to him. So it'll all be fine. We just got to keep doing what we're called to do.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Oh,
I got to throw. Go ahead. I got to throw one more thing in there.
Thank you to Overflow of His Glory as a new member. Thank you. And to everyone else who's supporting this channel through being a member on Locals or on YouTube. Thank you so much. But yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
So I want everybody to look at what happened in 1962 and 1963. You can do a little research on this. You can look at all the metrics and measurements of a society, and they were all steady or improving. And that's like divorce rates, criminal rates, all kinds of things, incarceration, everything. They were all improving until 1962, 1963. What happened in 1962 and 1963? That is when they removed prayer and the Bible from public schools. Now, there is a lot to unpack there in public schools, and we've had other episodes. Go ahead and get our exclusive content for all of this stuff. But yeah, so I think go ahead and go down that rabbit hole if you want to research some of that.
That's good.
No, it's a good point, and I think the welfare state began to be created sometime after that as well. But I think that you're probably more correct as far as like that's the furthest upstream. The beliefs are the furthest upstream. My very last point about thought about Elon Musk. I know we kind of hinted at this, but I think I just wanted to drive it home, because y'all mentioned about Elon Musk being super wealthy, and he has this vision for the future, and he's trying to enact it. And it occurred to me, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. He has enough money to basically do whatever he wants to do. He has enough money. He has the resources to be able to enact his vision for the future. But I think this is a big reason why he's ingratiating himself with the government. Another reason it could be is because we've seen this with the stuff he wants to do with SpaceX. He runs into the government all the time, telling him, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. And so I think that's actually, it's not about the money. It's actually about he needs the government to get off his back and give him the thumbs up to do whatever he wants to do for him to be able to enact the future. He has the money to enact the future. The government is standing in his way, good or bad. Agreed. We could talk about, well, are they standing in his way? We could talk about that, obviously, but good or bad, I think you're going to continue seeing people like Elon Musk. And that's why they end up ingratiating themselves into the government and try to get into the current establishment. And if the next establishment is right wing, I think that's better for the country. But he wants to get in there because he wants to be able to do what he wants to do without having it slapped down every single time by regulators. And so he has enough money to do what he wants to do, but he doesn't always have permission to do what he wants to do. So that's my closing thought on Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Great point. Thanks, Doug, for leading the discussion. Thanks, everyone. And to all those watching, don't forget, you can sign up, become an exclusive member on YouTube or Locals. Also, you can get your own copy of a Biden pardon that we're selling. No, I'm just kidding. We're not selling that.
We're not selling that.
Episode. That's another episode. If you
I was getting really excited about that.
I might start selling those. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right. We'll see y'all next time.